good user interface design cannot be overstated. It can mean the difference between your product being wildly successful and wildly panned and thought as a failure, regardless of how many hours you put into it. It's probably the #1 reason why the iPhone and other smartphones are so wildly successful, whilst dumb phones have been all but abandoned by everyone apart from your nan. So my question is, which would you rather use? The smartphone or the dumb phone? And why? A lot of this is to do with the user interface. So what makes a good user interface? Well, one thing is that it makes it easy to input data. The fact that this device has a touch screen that I can customize to my liking and I can enter data using an on-screen keyboard makes it massively better for inputting data than this, which, let's be frank, involves me tapping keys more than once to type a word. Now, autocorrect might be brilliant, but it's not that good. And the time wasted on one of these is enormous in comparison. So getting a good user interface that's malleable and can allow us to input data easily is one of the most important. It's also really important that the output is clear. With an iPhone, for instance, I can change the size of the font, the size of the text, I can see video, I can see pictures, I can see anything on this. And on this I can see 3 lines of text. And I've got 2 font choices. So you can understand why a good user interface helps sell devices, helps people use it. And a bad user interface leads to declining sales. Finally, do you know what? This just looks nice. It's really shiny, it's really nice, it's pretty. This is not. It might have been in the 1990s, but it's certainly not today. A good user interface, one that's attractive, one that looks nice, also benefits from having that allure of looking really nice and really interesting and getting people interested in the device. But how can we make sure that we get a good user interface? Well, it's easy to see what a good user interface looks like. Yes, see. S-E-E. That could be another one of our acronyms. I know you guys love learning acronyms. Well, C. If we're going to see a good user interface, it stands for satisfying, effective, and efficient. Those are the 3 things that we need out of a good user interface. So let's have a look at those in a bit more detail. What does it mean to have a satisfying user interface? Well, firstly, if something's satisfying, then it's easy to learn. And we can achieve this in a number of ways, the most important of which is using familiar techniques and familiar functions from other programs that the end user will be familiar with. The best example of this you will ever see is the save button. I bet if you look in a program on your computer right now, a save button will be a little icon, a little bit of the same icon, more or less on every program. But what is it? Well, the save icon is a floppy disk. Now, the last time I used a floppy disk was in the early 90s. I suspect many of you people watching this have never even seen a floppy disk, let alone the old 5 1/4 floppy disks, which the icon's based on. And have a look at this. This is an iPad. Where do I put the floppy disk in there to save? Because the save button's a floppy disk. It just won't fit in the iPad. No, the reason we use a floppy disk icon to save is because it's shorthand for saving. It's a convention that we've adopted. And it means that when a user picks up a new user interface, they can easily find out how to save the file they're working on, making it massively satisfying because I'm not having to relearn the way it works. This also extends to the way programs actually run. So the massive success of Microsoft Office has meant that a lot of programs replicate the way in which that works. Drop-down menus, bars at the top, different screens, even to the extent that most computers will copy the shortcut keys. Command and S, Control and S on a Windows machine to save, etc. This makes it satisfying for a user because they know how to use it. If you couple this with a really good online help and you really explain how non-standard features work, so any new stuff you drip feed and you bring in slowly, means that we get a fully satisfying user experience that a user will actually enjoy using rather than find it a pain to learn about. It's also a good idea to give them sensible plain English error messages. "Oh no, I can't print, there's no paper," is much better coming from a printer than "error 46." Because error 46 doesn't help me. I don't know what that means. I have to look it up. Sensible error messages certainly help you out. What about an effective user interface then? Well, effective simple because an effective user interface simply allows me to input data quickly and easily without any mistakes. If we enter data accurately, then we can reduce the time we spend using the device or using the user interface because, frankly, who wants to be doing that? What does this look like in the real world? Well, it could be the fact that we use standard elements for drop-down menus, standard boxes, and make things obvious how to enter data. It could be that we lay them out in a straightforward and logical progression. It could be that we validate the data to make sure it's going in correctly first time. We could even simply be putting straightforward instructions so people can follow those. That's the minimum we can do. But an effective user interface is one that can be used. And if it's unusable, it's no good. What about efficiency then? Well, making a user interface efficient is all about making the most of the available resources. This could be something like processing power. As an example, the iPhone gives more processing power to drawing the elements on screen and makes it more important than an Android phone does. This has an obvious benefit because when the Android phone is really struggling to render something in the background and you tap on it, nothing seems to happen. You tap some more and before you know it, you've gone at the settings screen and deleted everything. The iPhone, when it's doing something really complicated in the background, you tap the screen to cancel, that's the first thing that happens, the screen updates. You never tap it more than once and it's never lagging. That makes it seem more efficient. What about the available input-output medium then? Because an iPad is obviously very different to an iPhone. I've got an app on both of these called OmniFocus. There it is in the iPhone, there it is on the iPad. You can see, although it's the same program, they've got very different screen sizes to be working with. So an efficient user interface uses what's available efficiently. There's less on the screen there, and there's more on the screen there, but both apps have got the same functionality. It's just displayed in a different way so as to make it useful for the screen size we've got. Finally, it can simply be much more efficient to put the questions in the correct order or group them together. A website like Amazon would be really inefficient if, when we ask for our payment details, we put our card number in, then we put the first line of our address in, then we pick the product, then we put the second line of our address in, then we put our postcode in, then we put the expiry date in. And if we group everything together, so payment details, what we've bought, and shipping details, then it makes it run faster. It makes it much more efficient as a user interface. So we really can see the difference that a good user interface makes. Making sure it's satisfying, making sure it's effective, and making sure it's efficient means that whenever anyone uses your user interface, they can do so quickly, easily, with few mistakes, and be positive about it. Don't forget, with user interfaces, a good one means massive adoption from the majority of people for your product, and a poor one means it fails so badly and it's underused so much that it might as well be agoraphobic. User interfaces are massively important. So stop doing them wrong. Do them right. Make sure you see what's in a good user interface.